Hello racers! In today's video we will be talking about the new cards, but we will do something different than normal. I have Al with me from Team Enigma, and we will be doing a bad cop, good cop about cards that we found interesting from the new set. So I will take a stance of every single card is amazing, and Al will take his normal stance that every new card is terrible. So let's start with the new mechanic. The bases from the new set are changed from the 30 HP to 28 HP, and when a friendly force unit attacks, gain the force. And force is a token that you can only have one. You either have it or you don't. And it allows you to interact with certain new cards from the set. So Al, what do you think about the mechanic?
Well, I think from a design perspective, there's a lot to like about it. It's not inherently underpowered like some of the other mechanics we've seen. Like Coordinate was obviously just such an underpowered mechanic with the base rules of the game. Mechanics like Pilots, I'm really not a big fan of because they're so all or nothing. You know, there's not a lot of nuance there, which I don't like. But with this mechanic, it doesn't seem to have anything inherently that I dislike about it. The only sort of minor gripe I have is that the way they've sort of done it so far from what we've seen is that in order for the sort of force token leaders to kind of work and for a force token deck to work, you kind of need a leader and a specific base with it. So we're probably not going to see many of these force token leaders with the existing bases that we have in the game, which I just think limits kind of deck building opportunities and things a little bit. So not the most perfect mechanic ever, but I think it's got a lot of potential.
And yeah, they've added few cards that may give you a force without the base, so maybe like some specific leader could work. And because you basically have two ways of using the force. There are cards that care if you have it, and there are cards that you use them. From what the cards shown, I think the force is balanced about 1 mana. So it's basically if the card uses the force, it could be one more like expensive by one more. Actually, I really like the mechanic. Because it allows them to push like power level a little bit further without breaking the balance of the game. But on the other hand, it also can push the game a little bit too far. And I think it's bestly shown in the next bases. Because we also got 4 rare bases. All of them interact with the force. And they are 25 HP, so a little bit like steep cost. But what I was worried about a little bit is that getting force may be too easy, and there are some cards that are really powerful if you have them. And we got like those bases allow you to basically have them whenever you want, especially the green one. It's 3 times a game, but if the game takes like 3 or 4 turns, it's basically whenever you want. So for me, those two, because I think the other two, the yellow and red, are just bad, worse than the 28 HP. But those two can definitely find a deck for them, and can allow some crazy combos.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot to say about this whole mechanic, really. So I agree with everything you've said there, except the only thing I would sort of take issue with is that you sort of came into this looking at the force token payoffs and saying that they seemed really strong, so how easy is it going to be to get the force? I actually think they're quite underwhelming. I think the force token payoffs aren't actually that impressive, and I think these bases make getting the force, as you kind of say, quite easy. I mean, in the case of Mystic Monastery, obviously there's no requirement at all. You basically, if you're playing a quick game, you're an aggro tempo type deck, then Mystic Monastery means you always have the force basically whenever you want it. Which, because like you said, the games aren't going to really, you're not going to need the force like 7, 8, 9 times in a game unless it's going long, and most games don't go long with aggressive decks. With the Vergence Temple, the blue one, controlling a unit with 4 or more remaining HP, if you build the deck with that in mind, it's very easy to do. You can do it on turn 1. You know, you can play your 4 health unit on turn 1, and then as long as it, you know, they don't ambush into it or something, you're going to get the force immediately. So there's a lot of it's very easy with these two bases in particular to get the force. I'm just not sure the force token payoffs are quite there yet, but we'll come across some of those later as we go through. But 25 HP is a very steep cost, as you say, and you know the only bases so far that have had any success with that is Tarkin Tower Town and Engine Conversion Lab, and the main reason for that is that they are very high tempo. They impact the board against aggro decks a lot, like defeating your opponent's turn one play, or with either with ECL or with Tarkin Town is such a big deal. Whereas these bases, on their own, unless the payoffs are there and they're really high tempo payoffs, they don't necessarily make up for that deficit against an aggro deck. So that's my only concern, I think, with the bases at the moment.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think it's actually a decent design. You wouldn't want like 27 HP base or 20 or like 30 HP base that gives you a big payoff. We
No.
will be talking about the payoff cards in a moment, but like with those, I think especially like the cards that they were shown today with the 2 mana 2/4, which I think in this set will be like a basic stat line for a unit that we actually before we only had R2 with these stats.
Yeah.
So you with green and blue, getting the force will be really easy. I think it may be a negative that the other two, the red and the yellow, are actually not great. So it will limit
Yeah.
the possibility of like variety of decks. But on the other hand, the 28 HP bases are not bad. I think if your deck is mostly force units, it would be quite easy to get the force.
Yeah, I think it's harder than it seems to actually have a force unit attack reliably. I mean, if your force unit, you only get a force unit attacking like, in the early stages of the game a couple of times, then it's kind of, not as good as Mystic Monastery in that way.
Yeah.
I mean, you're only paying a 2 HP cost, right? So if you're using a force tokeny deck, losing 2 HP is not the end of the world. It really isn't that much. It's just when you sort of start to compare some of these decks to like Data Vault, when you're losing 5 HP,
Yeah.
even Colossus in some cases with Anakin, let's say, if you're losing 7 HP, it's a lot to lose that really just to enable a few cards in your deck.
Yeah.
So that's the concern I have.
Yeah, even now, if you play like ECL versus Colossus, that 10 HP swing, it's enormous. 2
Yeah.
HP, on the other hand, like 2 HP is in the point that it also doesn't break that many like breakpoints of damage. Because I think 25 is a little bit different because it's like 5 attacks with 5 power. And though I think people underestimated how like that 1, 2, or 3 even like small amount of HP actually matter. So like for example, the like base from the previous set, the 24 HP that creates the tokens for green.
Yeah.
I've tried it, and that 1 HP like compared to ECL was such a big deal because
Yeah.
the breakpoints were much harder. So even though I really really like the bases, and I think especially the green one with I think especially with Quinlan can be really important for the deck because it will be probably like a tempo combo deck, and having access to the moment you want and not relying on attacking gives you that consistently that decks like that may need. Okay, so let's talk about next card. We chose the list like together, and I randomized them. So next one is Maz Kanata. So I can start with this one. For me, it's a better fleet lieutenant. It's basically the same card, but works with a different trait. And it also like force before this set, I think it would be much worse because we didn't really have any force synergy, force decks that can reliably have a lot of force units. Now we actually got a lot of turn 1 plays with force, and especially a unit with a 2/4 stat line can really synergize with Maz Kanata well. And the fact that she is not a 3/3 and a 3/4 is a really big difference because now your opponent's 2-drop will not be able to trade into it. So I think this card will definitely see play and can create like a Sabine version of decks for different leaders. So for example, like for Kylo Ren, so any low-costed force leader will get a big boost. And the other fact that this is not forced into heroic, it can be played in both villainous and heroic, is also for me a really big deal because buff effects in villainous especially were not great.
Yeah, so a lot to like about Maz, as you say, especially with the reveals that we saw on the day of recording this, where we got two new Force units that are two Force you can play on turn one. Before that point, there really aren't that many turn one Force units, and you need a lot for this to work. Your deck has to kind of be full of them. You need all your turn one players, almost all of them, I think, need to be Force for this to be a reliably strong card.
Yeah.
And now that might be possible. So if you can build a deck that's all turn one players or almost all turn one players that are Force, then and it's command, then stick Maz in. She's a great card. She is a better fleet lieutenant. It's just that fleet lieutenant hasn't seen that much play. That's going to sound crazy, but outside of Sabine, there's really not many decks that use fleet lieutenant because the rebels, building a deck full of rebels is actually quite difficult unless you're in a really hyper aggressive deck. So it's not the most common card, and that's a heroism only card, so it's a little bit less restrictive than Maz in a sense. I mean, Maz can obviously go in villainy decks, but only command. So yeah, I think Maz, you're right. Maz will see play. I mean, I think we are going to be able to build decks that have primarily Force units on turn one, but she's not just like going to go in every single command deck because there is a real cost to this.
Yeah.
You can't just stick her in with a couple of Force units and think she's going to be fine. A 3-cost 3/4, if you don't play Force unit on turn one, is a very bad thing to do on turn two. It's just not good enough. That 1 point of HP compared to a 3/5 matters a lot. So you really do want to be triggering her a lot of the time. So yeah, a good card though.
Yeah, I will also add that with Fleet Lieutenant, it was much harder to find a rebel leader, and actually with Force, even though we didn't have that much many Force units, we had a lot of Force leaders.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, very good point.
So I think like it will just be a really played card. It won't break, I think, anything. She won't be like, oh, this is so overpowered. And I think the fact that she is not Force herself is actually a big downside at the same time, because your deck, you will have a synergy with Force, and she will not be enabling it at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay, next. Oh, yeah, juicy one.
Is it?
Yeah, with this one, I'm kinda not happy that I need to say a lot of positive things. Because I really like the character. I think his design is not bad. Like, his ability seems fine, but then his stats are really mediocre, especially with a ability that you want to kill stuff and survive. The restore one is just random. Like, I know it fits the character, but at the same time, it doesn't really fit the design of the card that much. If you buff him, his ability is really powerful. And but yeah, he got a little bit of support, but having only one aspect is will be tough.
Yeah, I think the card's atrocious. I think he's a very, very bad leader. It's sad to say because I mean, he's a cool character, and I mean the artwork's cool and everything. And having the first leader that's kind of not got an aspect, it's a cool idea, and I really like everything. And his leader ability is really good. I think it's a very solid ability. His stats aren't great, but they're not the worst. Deploying on 5 means he has a chance, right? Like if he deployed on 6 with slightly higher stats, he would have been definitely not. But he has a chance. But having one aspect is just such a huge burden. You're playing a mono deck, which there already aren't very many mono decks that see play at the moment. There are very few actually, and you're playing a mono deck that doesn't get the best cards in that deck, and instead you get a pretty average leader. So I just don't see any reason to play Darth Revan. If he had another aspect, I think he, I'm not really one who deals in ifs, so I haven't really thought about it too much. But he probably would be good enough to see play. But the fact that it's not like a guarantee. If he had like an aggression aspect as well, I wouldn't just say, oh, he's definitely going to see play. And that alone is just bad enough, right? Because losing that second aspect is an absolutely massive cost. And like I said, most decks don't want to pay it, even when they get cards like Cunning or Aggression or whatever, thrown in. So yeah, not a good leader at all.
Yeah, I think that's the great point. That even if he had the other aspect, I would still say that he's like mediocre at best. And like I think they are kind of going away from a 3/7 stat lines for a 5-drop leaders because they are really powerful. But I think he could have been 4/7.
Yep,
And
definitely. I 100% agree.
of course, then I would actually say he may be good enough to be played and even powerful, because that's a really, really good stat line. But yeah, I think sadly with this one, I will just agree he will just be an obscure. People will try him for sure, and I think he will end up similar to like Boba 4 in the previous deck, that people like him, people want to play him, but he will not perform.
Yeah.
And yeah, so now we have a card that synergizes with him. Uh, so
Yeah.
Darth Tyrannus, 4 mana, 4/3 shielded, and if you have a force, it gains ambush. Yeah, so let's start with your opinion of it.
Well, I'm afraid we've started with, other than Revan, I mean, we've started with a couple that I actually don't dislike too much, so I'm not doing a great job of bad cut, but trust me, it'll come. Yeah, but Darth Tyranus, I mean, uh, really, with this card was obviously spoiled. Was it the first card I think that was spoiled of the set or something?
One of them.
Yeah, very early on, and it looked like we looked at it and thought, if the Force token is gettable, if it's not too high, steep a cost, or if you can hold on to it, then this card looks pretty good. I mean, a 4-cost 4/3 shielded ambush is clearly a premium stat line for a 4-drop unit. Forlom has fallen off a little bit. Doesn't see as much play. Doesn't see play in many decks really. I mean, it's only really CAD that plays it. But and that's just a 4/4, right? A 4/3 shielded is so much better than that. So yeah, I think really good stat line. We are seeing more and more 3/5s coming into the game, which is unfortunate timing for Darth Tyranus because basically everyone on the Grammar is going to be playing a 3-cost 3/5 on turn 2 now. So when that happens, Darth Tyranus loses a lot of value. But yeah, the Force token seems really easy to get. So really, I mean, I think he reliably is just a 4-cost 4/3 shielded ambush, and crucially, he doesn't use up the token. So you just need to have it and save it, and then he'll work. So yeah, I think it really easy to activate his ability, but I'm just not sure 4 power is actually enough to work in the current metagame. But we'll have to see.
Yeah, I will also add that he's a separatist, so maybe another card for Dooku.
Yeah.
And actually, Dooku really needed another 4-drop, like a decent 4-drop. But I don't know if Dooku can reliably have a base that will give you the Force. So that combination is like we would need to see what else, what more cards came up, because I think you would still need to play the normal base and maybe just get a token and keep it.
There's
But
something else I've noticed. Sorry, just to interrupt you there. At first, I thought, oh, he's actually got quite good synergy with the 28 HP base because he's a Force unit that can attack and ambush and trigger it. But that's not true at all because if you have the Force token to give him the ambush, then you already have the token and you can't regain it twice. So he actually has no synergy at all with the 28 HP base in that sense. But yeah, ignore that. Just in case people were thinking that.
Yeah. So, but the shielded, he may survive. So we saw Aiden from the new set, 4/3 shielded, and of course she's better as a pilot, but whenever you had to play her as a unit, it wasn't that bad. The shielded units are, I think, a lot of people underestimate how big of a difference that the protection gives. So yeah, I definitely will see him as a card that will be played, and in some decks, if we get something that can ping or give additional power, maybe like Gar Saxon with Force, and now you have a 5-power ambusher with shield that can actually clear all the 3/5s. And
Yep.
yeah, it will definitely be something that people will build around. And Force, Separatist, and Sith, all of them are like tags that have synergies. So
Yeah. Limited as they may be, but yeah,
okay.
Sith has some synergy. Yeah.
Yeah, and now we are coming to Ezra Bridger. So 3 mana, 3/5. So as you said, the stat line that is really relevant. I actually really like Ezra. 3/5, 3/5 for free was seen play without any ability. His ability is, if you manage to use it, it's amazing. I think it will be quite hard to use it, but Force, Jedi, Rebel, Spectre, 4 relevant traits. Good stat line. In a color that had a really struggle with a 3-drop, because your best option was Yoda, which is not that great. It's a good unit, but had a drawback of 2/4 is really big. And it also got a lot of synergy. I think even Spectre synergy, it's getting better and better. I don't think Hera leader from set 1 will be ever playable, but we have different ways of play specters now. So yeah, I really like it. I think it will be definitely a big addition to the heroic blue.
Yeah, so obviously the card is solid. I'm not going to sit here and say it's a bad card. I mean, the stats alone give it a good baseline. But I will say I don't think the stats alone are quite enough because, I mean, liberated slaves probably in a slightly more awkward aspect, but it doesn't really see any play. I mean, outside of what, like Han 1 red or something, it doesn't really see much play. Obviously, DJ's been banned, so you know there's one fewer 3/5 to deal with. But we also have like Boba unit and the 3/5 bounty hunter in villainy as well. I've forgotten his name now. Toro. Yeah, so and there's quite a lot of them, and not all of them see that much play. Like they do see play, and they're good, but they're not like dominating the game in any way. The only one that I would say really like shines is Cassian and goes in every single aggression heroism deck because his ability is really really good. His ability is actually very valid in every single deck he goes in, and he's a 3/5, and Rebel is an important tag in some decks. So Ezra, he's got all the tags. Force is important. Jedi doesn't do really very much at the moment, so I don't think people should get too excited about Jedi or Spectre. I mean, they're okay, but they're not worth very much. And Rebel's okay as well. But the on attack thing, triggering an experience token, having another unit in play, and this one getting to attack, and it being a Spectre or a creature is quite a lot of conditions. Like there's quite a lot to meet. If it was when played or something, then it would be far easier. But on attack, there's a lot to deal with there. If you've got two units in play and one of them gets to attack, you're already ahead in a lot of games in the early stages anyway. So I'm not sure his ability, as you say, will come up very often. I think his ability is far weaker than Cassian's personally, and so I do think it's a weaker card than Cassian. But it does mean that things like Hand 2, Blue now have another battlefield marine they can play on turn 1, which is good for them. But yeah, there's a lot of competition in this slot. In this set, the 3-drops, they're releasing so many sort of strong ones and so many 3/5 stat lines and things now that there is a lot of competition. So I don't think Ezra is as good as he would have been in like set 1. But yeah, it's a solid card. But I just think it's not that far away from blank text on his card. It's further away than I think people realize.
Yeah, of course.
Not as far away.
Maybe if we get a Spectre leader that deploys on 4, so maybe like Sabine Blue, because then his ability is actually important. You will get the unit 100%. And I know in the past Sabine Blue seen play. Not the greatest leader in the game, and not the Blazers combination in the game, but like now, Sabine Data Vault won a tournament.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, it's a good synergy with Sabine Blue. It's true. I mean, if this card was in aggression, then it would obviously be so good. But I think it isn't a weak aspect for it. But yeah, it's a good point you raise. But for me, there's a lot of like ifs and buts. But the chances of us getting a 4-deploy strong Spectre leader, I think, is quite slim, to be honest. So.
I will also add that Jedi doesn't had a lot of support, but General's Blade is a really powerful card. And I have no idea what deck would play both, but
blue-green. Not so sure about that.
Maybe some Luke deck or something like that. But I still think even if he only had Force, I think he would see in play. And as you said, like in Hand 2, especially with Hand 2, you really wanted another Force unit. Now you will get like tons of them, so I don't know if Ezra will actually make the cut, but I'm optimistic for him. Oh, and now the really spicy one. So, as I have foreseen, look at the top card of your deck. You may use the Force. If you do, play that card for 4 or less. So, a discount of 3. I think, for me, with this card, it was, if it will be really easy to get the Force, it can be insane. Of course, the first leader comes to mind. It's the Traun from first set, because then you always know what you have on top, and like having a discount of 3 on turn 1, you could basically play a 4-drop.
5-drop.
5-drop on turn 1. And playing a 5-drop on turn 1 can win you the game, but it will not be consistent. I will I will say that. But I think if we get this card now, I think it may be hard to find play, even though like this count of 3 is incredibly powerful. You're not using the card from your hand to play it because you play the top card of your deck. But if we will get like a villainous leader like Yoda, this card will be absolutely insane.
Yeah. So again, I'm not so much one who deals in ifs. I mean, you can make almost any card busted in the right situation. I think you're right. All it would take is a villainous Yoda type to make this really good, but we don't have that now. So if we just go based on what we have now, this can only really work in Thrawn. I mean, if you want to Hail Mary it and play it on turn 1, good for you. But you know you're going to lose games doing that. So in a competitive, serious setting, I mean, this only really works with Thrawn. I think Thrawn's a pretty awful leader personally. Deploying on 6 is very bad, and so I'm not really sold on it. Basically, to get the Force really easily on turn 1, the only way to do that, I think, is the green 25 HP base.
Yeah.
So what we're looking at the moment for this to work, right as it stands, is a Thrawn set 1 with green 25 HP base, and then you can't control the top card of your deck. So you just look at it, and if it's a good card, you get to play this, and if it's not, it doesn't do anything still. So you're not really getting that much benefit. So like, I just think this card is a complete meme. It's not like Galactic Ambition where it's clearly awful, and it won't work. But I just think this card has got way too many conditions for it to actually be competitive. I could be wrong, but yeah, I think really, maybe it's one of those things where you use it throughout the game. You don't have to use it on turn 1, but it's just going to be so hard for this to like line up. But the green base has given it some hope, I think, because you need to, or even just the 25 HP base in general, where you're going to be able to reliably get the Force, because that was just such an important part of this. But yeah, I don't love it.
I have another addition. What about just playing it in Yoda? It's still reducing the cost by 1. You have a reliable way of putting card on top and playing off curve, because you don't lose a card with it. So
you don't lose a card, but you're playing. You're having to like use the ability first, so it's not like you can start the turn with this. So it's like a lot of maneuvering there, and then all of that, and you have to use the Force. Don't forget, you have to have some way to generate Force tokens. Which I know you mentioned earlier. There are obviously cards that do that, but I don't think that's going to cut it. Like, because then you're adding another step where you have to draw one of those cards and play it and stuff. So I think you're going to have to use a base. So all of those ifs and haves to get a 1-cost discount, I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm not a fan.
Yeah, maybe. If there is some like a specific combo.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
Okay, so and now let's like the first double aspect that they shown a Dume, 4 mana, double vigilance, force creature, and really powerful ability of giving experience token to every single unit that is not a vehicle at the start of at the beginning of the turn, and 2/7 stat line. This is one of the cards that is extremely hard to evaluate, because we don't really have anything like this at the moment. So it needs to survive. 7 HP, it will probably survive at least a turn. Double villain, but I think if it was a 1 aspect card, I would see it play wildly, like in many different decks, because like the ability is powerful. And if it survives more than 1 turn, it can be like really broken. But the fact that we at this moment don't have 4 deploy leader for blue, I don't think we have, or maybe I forgot
There's
about.
Nala say. Yeah, Nala say.
Okay, no, so we don't have a leader with 4 deploy. And and double vigilance is a really weird combination. It has a really powerful plays, but all of the powerful plays are on 4 mana. So vigilance, Dume, Sugi, the upgrade that brings you back, it's all 4 mana. So even though I really like the card, and I think it can work with the new Kanan leader, but for this to work, we would need to have a really good 4 deploy blue leader, and then synergy that can just make it out of control.
Yeah, so I think this card is absolute trash. So the so first of all, let's just look at it as a 6 cost, just in case you're going to play it in out of
Oh,
aspect trash. 6 cost 2/7 is it's horrendous, right? So we can write that off immediately. That's never going to work. So it has to be double vigilance. Now I
yeah.
agree that if it had any other aspect, basically, honestly, maybe even double like aggression or double something else, but double vigilance has got to be the worst possible aspect for this thing to be in. Like it's the hard control, not going wide, not swarmy type deck. It's the slowest sort of aspect we've got. The only double blue deck that's really ever worked, I think, is Iden, and or hard control. I suppose it wasn't always Iden, but yeah, something like that. And yeah, I just think why would you ever want a 2/7 that gives experience tokens to units in like that type of deck? So I think the second vigilance aspect kills this card completely. Good ability, decent stats or whatever, but the stats are quite slow actually. In fact, I think a 2/6 because it doesn't give the experience token to itself. If it grew itself, I would like it
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot more. But it doesn't even grow, right? So if you have no other units, which is perfectly reasonable that they've defeated your other units, it's a 2/7, which isn't good enough at all. So I think this card is absolute trash tier and will never see play.
Yeah. I can see one leader at this moment that can play it. It's Chirrut, and because this is
Yeah.
a really weird leader that can, like, if you put play this on 4, deploy Chirrut on 5, put a protection on him and just protect him till the end of time. Like the additional value is really big, and 2/7 also synergize with like protect, so then it's a 3/8 sentinel, which is actually a really big body. And double blue Chirrut was a deck that like C tier at best, but you could play it. It wasn't unplayable. It could win with most leaders. And when the leader couldn't actually kill Chirrut, it was quite annoying. But yeah, I don't have high hopes for it. And I know I will see a like creature force centric deck that will try to go with the porgs, go wide, and use his ability to the fullest. I hope it works, but I agree with you actually that it may not.
Let me just put a quick disclaimer here. When I say this card will see no play, I'm not talking about the random meme warriors who want to put Porg decks together. Every card can see play in that world. I'm talking about top tier competitive play.
Yeah,
But yeah, sure. You can put this card in your Star Wars Limited deck. That is something you can physically do.
yeah, you probably shouldn't, but oh, and let's talk about the leader that have a synergy with it. So Kanan Jarrus, a 6 mana vigilance heroic leader. He has a really powerful ability, but really restrictive. So for 1 mana, you give a shield token to a creature or specter. We don't have much creatures, so it's basically for now mostly specters. And on flip side, even though he flips on 6, he's a 3/6 shielded. And then there's that bottom really important text that if you control creature or specter, he gets +2/+2. So he can be a 5/8 shielded on deploy.
Yeah, so 6 deploy leaders are really fighting an uphill battle, and one of the things they kind of need to do is one of two things: either have an incredibly powerful leader side ability like Cad Bane, or have where you can just pinging constantly every single turn, or have ridiculously good stats and a good leader ability like Anakin. Right, Anakin's stats are absurd. He's usually like 7/7 or whatever, 6/7/7/7, 8/7, and his leader ability means he can trade with anything. Right, so he's got a great front and back side, and it's not like Anakin's one of the he's probably I'd say probably tier 1 actually. So he's a strong leader. So Kanan kind of needs to kind of do something similar to that right now. His leader ability very Luke Skywalker-ish. You pay 1, exhaust him, give a shield token. Obviously, unlike Luke, you can't put it on anything. It's restricted, as you say, to a very small number of units. I mean, I know there are a decent number of specters, but to build a whole deck full of creatures and specters is quite difficult, and it will be a weaker deck than like a Luke deck would have been. So the restriction's big. The restriction that Luke had of only giving it to a unit that turn, I think, wasn't actually that big a restriction because you just kind of built the deck that way. But it wasn't that often you wanted to play off curve anyway. So, and the most powerful thing that Luke did was he could do like an Alliance Dispatcher with a shield, or he could do Village Protectors with double shields and things like that. Kanan can't do any of that. He's sticking shields on Sabine units and Kanan units and stuff like that. Just normal, not massively impressive units. So I don't think his leader side's that good unless we get some incredible Spectres releasing in the next few weeks. I do think his leader deploy side is good. A 5/8 shielded is clearly a very good stat line, and it's probably enough to justify the 6 deploy. But I will say he does still get defeated by an ambushing Poe or just an attacking Poe because he comes down turn later, and that's a big deal. Poe is not just in Sabine; it's in a lot of heroism decks, and Poe being able to clear him. You have to discard 2 cards, but Poe being able to clear him and survive, it's just such a huge downside for this leader.
Yeah, I will defend Kanan a little bit. I think his ability may be really powerful, but first we would need to see a Sentinel Spectre. But the fact that it can give it constantly, so you could, if you, for example, let's say you play Sabine turn 1, you give her an upgrade and shield next turn. Next turn you give her upgrade, trade up, trade up, trade up. It is a possibility. Especially
there's a lot of decks that will incredibly punish that line, though, right? Power of the Dark Side, Waylay. There's so many ways to punish that.
Yeah, but
if you go down that route.
But at the same time, you are not forced into playing like that. So, for example, versus Sabine, it could be really good to just constantly have something to trade up. Spectres are actually one of the better trade. Like most of Spectres are playable. Even like Kanan C play, Sabine C play, Sabine Masterpiece is really big right now.
With ECL though mainly.
Yeah, right? you can play him with ECL.
Yeah. Then you're losing a lot if you do
that. Yeah. Creatures, I think this set definitely it will get a lot of support. We already see few creatures. None of them were incredible. No. Creatures we had before are mostly bad, or in the colors that completely not synergize with Kanan. So yeah, he still needs a lot of support, but this is a leader I would like. I would not just say, oh, his 6 deploy, he's terrible, because 5/8 is just a really, really big stat line. We didn't have a stat line like this for 6 before, so, and as we know with like Boba before that got banned, a single point in stats in the leader can change a lot. And 8 HP, yeah, he dies to Poe, but he basically doesn't die to anything else.
Well, Rivals Fall, another big one.
Yeah, but and on the other, even if, for example, if you play him, your opponent attacks it with Poe and discards 2 cards. If you manage to like kill the Poe without losing a lot, it's still 3 cards for leader, so it's not a bad trade even if your opponent managed to kill him.
It's hard to clear a 6/1 though, right? Like without losing a card yourself. So I think it will usually be like you have to use another card as well. But yeah, it's not necessarily the end of the world. Discarding 2 cards is a lot. Yep.
Yeah, but yeah, and of course, Force, Jedi, Rebel, Spectre, relevant. Like all of them can be relevant. Especially like Force and Rebel, I think at the moment, like they have the big synergies, but yeah, like all of them can have some specific add-ons to them. The only thing I don't like about the leader is the art.
Yeah, I think he's going to bed, right? Is that a blindfold? Is he going to sleep?
No, like canonically, like the art isn't bad, but I think it's just brown. Like the whole card is brown. So that's
it's very Luke, honestly, like the kind of like the Luke art from set 1 where it's like the gas in the background and stuff. It kind of reminds me of that. And the card is so similar to Luke, and it's part of the reason why I think he won't do well is because I know Luke has not performed very well at all in my opinion. So and he's not that much different to Luke, really. So
yeah, that kind of see that, but it has much better stats than Luke, so maybe it will push him. Okay, and now we have all the Daka, 5 mana 6/6, really good stat line. Like almost every single card with this stat line saw play. Like Anakin and Poe. Anakin didn't see that much play, mostly because of Poe, because we have like better 5-drop, but 6/6 is a really good stat line. The ability is powerful, but really restrictive. We don't see a lot of knight units. We got few of them this set, but I don't think any of them that we got this set is particularly amazing. But I think statlines statlines, especially in this color, may just push this card to be played, just because a lot of villainous blue decks had a really bad 5 mana if they didn't like play barrage. And just putting a big unit in this type of deck, your opponent will need to clear it, or then you're scaring them with barrage.
Yeah, so in terms of the 5 cost 6/6s, there's obviously Poe, which, he's one of the best cards in the game, but it's because his ability is ridiculously good and he's got good stats. Anakin, I would argue Anakin's seen almost no play at all, and I know Poe kind of pushes him out, but Anakin's, I think, not a great card in my opinion. Zuckuss is the only other one, and Zuckuss is like kind of been on and off. I mean, if it wasn't for Zuckuss and Forlom, would Zuckuss have been played? No. So I don't think so. So I don't think a 5 cost 6/6 is enough. I think the ability. I know it's in a different aspect to what we've seen before, but I think the ability needs to do something, and this ability at the moment just does nothing. It really doesn't do anything at all. The knight units we've got, it doesn't synergize with basically any of them. There's one that can use the force to give -3/-3, which is okay. There's another one that can like draw a card when it gets defeated, which again is okay. Yeah. But you need to include a decent number of these, and they're not great cards on their own. So I think we need more support for her, because her ability I think needs to do something. And funnily enough, you can actually defeat your own knight leader with this, even though it won't get replayed because it doesn't go to the discard piles. But you can defeat it. It doesn't say non-leader. So if you wanted to sacrifice your own Asajj, sorry, you could do that. But yeah, I don't like old Daka at the moment. Like a lot of the cards that I'm kind of naysaying on here, it needs more in my opinion. And usually when a card needs more, when we're about like a third of the way through the set reveals, more than that, it doesn't necessarily always get more. So I'm not convinced by old Daka.
Yeah, I fully agree. I actually agree with what we have in Knight is not that great. They draw a card maybe in like Traun when you can double trigger it, but I think yellow. Blue Villainous, I think the stat line is what may push the card to just see play, because that color didn't really have anything. Like Husk was played as a 5 mana 5/5. Yeah, his ability is really amazing, but it's not as consistent.
Only with ECL though, right?
Yeah,
he's only in play with ECL. So.
But because like 5 HP was like difference between 5/5 and 6 is for me it's quite big, and Force, even though in Villainous is not that great, like you can play Force Throw, but I still think Heroic is a place when you want to do it more. But we do have the Force Lightning that didn't see any play before, but I think actually the card is powerful, so maybe it will push it a little bit. I hope at least one 4 mana Knight unit can like a really like K2 with Knight can push it.
Agreed.
Okay. Yeah, so let's talk about a Knight card that doesn't synergize it with it at all. So Merrin, 3 mana 2/5. So statline is under what we want. Force, Knight, and on attack you may discard a card to deal 2 damage to a unit. I have a really big problem with the card. I think this can be a really powerful ability, but it requires a lot of build around. If it works, it will. If you manage to build a deck that will get value from discarding the cards, she can be really obnoxious. So, like Kylo, if you discard the Kylo ship, if you play it, I still think this card needs a little bit more. You would need to have something that generate the value instantly without using mana. But as we know from different card games, discard synergy can be overlooked to the point when there is like click and somehow discard is so powerful that it needs to get banned. And any card that can discard you a card can gain a lot of value over time. So even though I need to be positive, I don't think at the moment we have enough to see this card seeing play. but I'm hopeful that it will get enough support.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're pretty much in agreement on this one. I think it has potential, but I don't think we're there yet. I mean, synergy discard card. I mean, discard synergy cards. I mean, what have we got? Kylo's TIE Silencer. There's really not much else, and like you need a lot. You need like 3 or 4 different cards. I think that actually want to be discarded, and so and if you think about like Kylo, because then the way you've got to look out for these cards is when the leader synergizes with it, it's a lot better because you always get the leader, right? So you don't really want 2 cards, like 2 units that synergize together as much. Like old Daka, even if we got a 4 cost knight unit, you still have to draw both, and that's a big if. Whereas with Merrin and Kylo, you will always have Kylo. So when you draw the Merrin, it works. But I don't think Kylo's in a situation where he's ever like, oh, I just desperately need more discard. He's kind of got enough discard with his ability anyway. What we want is high power units that deal a lot of damage, and Merrin, when attacking the base, still deals 2. So it's not like she's a 4/5 really. If you're attacking the base or if they're trading into her, she's not a 4/5. So she's got potential, but I don't think she's anywhere near there yet.
Yeah. I would say if we get a leader that says if you discarded a card this turn, draw or gain something like this like part of the spectrum, that if you do you gain value, then she can be much more relevant.
Yeah.
Oh, and now we have a card that for me, it can break a lot of decks. So Jedi Consular, 2 mana, 1/4, Force Jedi. And his ability is basically use the Force. You can play a unit, it costs 2 less. So if it survives turn 1 and you have a Force, you can play a 5-drop. You can play Poe Dameron on turn 2. And 4 HP makes him really, really hard to remove on turn 1. So I think he can enable a lot of crazy synergies. And like 1/4 is not the greatest stat line, but we saw a unit that see play with this stat line, and reducing the cost by 2 is like it can go beyond what like a normal combo decks do now.
So before the 25 HU bases were revealed, I kind of looked at this card and thought it's just Christmas Land. It's not going to work because the only way we had to generate the Force really is attacking with him. He's a Force unit. Turn 1 you play him, turn 2 you attack him, and then turn 3 he's going to be dead by turn 3. That's not going to happen in a realistic world. Now that we've got the bases that give you the Force basically as early as you want it. Now this guy can synergize with the green base because obviously you can just use it whenever you want it. But also the 25 HP blue base because he's 4 HP. So you play him on turn 1 with the blue base, you instantly get the Force. Turn 2 you can use the action and play a 5-drop on turn 2. So I think that base, in particular the blue one, but also the green one, have really activated this card and given him a lot more potential. So I do think he's got tons of potential. Whether or not it'll work out, I'm not sure. I mean, we've had kind of ways to do this before. Now there are 2 of them, sort of does a similar thing in a way. If your turn 1 play lives, then you can play a 5-drop on turn 2. Now the 2 of them really hasn't lived up to its potential. It's in very little play, really. It's in very niche play. So and while I think the combo is kind of better than that, it doesn't require another card. Like it doesn't require 3 cards. It only requires 2. So it's better. But yeah, I still think that it's. It is interactable. Your opponent, there are plenty of ways to defeat 1/4, before you get to trigger this. But yeah, I think the card's got a lot of potential.
Yeah.
Certainly one of the cards we should be looking at when trying to break, when trying to break the game when the set releases.
Yeah, I fully agree with what you said before. If we didn't have the 25 bases, I think it would be bad. Yeah. Because if you don't have the Force on turn 2, it's incredibly hard to use him. But because we got, I think now we, especially in green, I would look at the 5-cost units a lot differently, because if you can play something on turn 2, and you can build a deck around like this synergy, like for example, even in like Quinlan, the new leader, you could play a 5-drop on turn 2, you get the value from like when played, and then bounce it, play a 4-drop. And do it again next turn. Because.
Sorry, when you said Quinlan, you mean Qui-Gon?
Qui-Gon, yeah, I always miss them.
Yeah.
Sorry. If you use it once, it's powerful. If you manage to use it more than once, it's going to the like insane area. And
It is, but I just also look at it like this. I mean, you are getting a 5 drop on turn 2, and that's great, but you're also kind of not getting a turn 1 play in a way. Like, if you're
yeah,
using his action and he's a 1/4, he's not fighting your opponent's battlefield marine.
yeah,
He's not fighting. If your opponent goes A-Wing in space, or like, Falcon on turn 2 or something, and you're messing about on the ground with a 5
yeah,
drop or whatever, then, it can get a little bit hairy, so you've got to be careful with stuff like
yeah,
that. Just playing a 5 drop on turn 2 doesn't win the game. We saw that from, like, Poe and Eject. Poe, when you ejected Poe onto the ground turn 2 in
yeah,
those games, it really didn't do that much. Like, a
yeah.
4/6 is kind of like a 5 drop, and it really didn't do that much.
Yeah, that's true. I can only like counter it with if you manage to have a lot of 5 drops ambush units,
Yeah,
then it's beginning to be really big because they will probably kill the turn 1 play and survive. And then you can go into the point of just overwhelming your opponent with value. And yeah, 5 drops are okay, but then we can go if you manage to like ramp turn 2 and then play a 7 drop, we go into the Han territory of power. Yeah, but but I think we agree on that without the 25 HP basis, he is much weaker. And now we will
yeah,
need to see if 25 is not threshold of I'm dying too quickly, even though if I play a 5 drop, I'm dead.
yep. I agree.
And now we have Darth Malak. So 5 mana, a ground unit, Force 7, so really, really big stat lines. Overwhelm, and when played, if you control a Sith leader unit, you may ready this unit. Uh, when I first looked at the card, I thought it's insane, and it will be in every single deck that have a Sith leader. And then someone pointed out to me that your leader
That was
needs,
me, by the way.
yeah, but that your
I'll take credit for that.
that your leader needs to be deployed because it's leader unit, not leader. Uh, and then it was basically for me, okay, so you need to have a 4 or 5 deploy Sith for him to be really amazing. So I think he will be in, if whenever you will be building Raven deck, he will be an auto include. But
Yeah.
then you would need to play Raven. Uh, and I hope they will just introduce another Sith leader on 5 deploy so he will see play. And I think if you have a Sith leader on 5 deploy, it's a really, really good card. Good stat line, ability to enter ready. We know it's powerful. We play a Cassian for 5 mana that enters ready. And this one basically has +1/+2 on stats and overwhelm. But even though I'm trying to look positively at him, I think he will not see play almost at all.
Yeah, well, I'll go one step further. He won't see play at all. So he's so yeah, I completely agree. Good comparison. I mean, if this guy if you took away the condition, obviously, so if we look at it that way, if the condition's easily met, then the guy's a good card. I mean, Cassian, to be fair, when you play him as a 3/5, he effectively draws a card, which is a big deal, and also he can be played as a turn 2 3/5, which this guy can't. So even if the condition's taken away, this card's still worse than Cassian, in my opinion. So that's a bad place to start in a sense. But yeah, there are no Sith leaders that synergize with it at all. The only one that can really work with it is Asajj, and there is no way your Asajj is going to live, to get this guy to trigger. If you deploy Asajj on 4 resources, your opponent's got that turn and the next turn to defeat it before they get to play Malak. So I just don't think that's going to work. And there's no other Sith leader that can work with them at all. They all deploy after, or they're terrible, like Darth Revan. So Malak will see. Obviously, caveat: Malak will see 0 play unless, of course, they release a strong Sith leader that deploys on 5 resources, which they might, but they haven't yet.
Okay, but I've got a situation that it can be decent in Asajj Green if you ramp on 4. Then you have
Yeah.
Asajj with an ability that clear something, he will clear another thing. You can just get back the board. So maybe like if Asajj Green ever becomes playable, maybe he will find his home there. But yeah, if we have a safe leader on 5, I think we will see him. But I don't think they will do any really good. Like they already printed one, you will put him in the Raven deck, but it will not be a good deck anyway.
Yeah, I mean you've got to go, but they're not gonna. It's very unlikely they're gonna print 2-5 deployed like Sith. It's just probably not gonna happen. So I think Revan was the one this guy was supposed to work with, and they've obviously just missed the mark with Revan. So they've missed the mark with him as well, unfortunately.
Yeah. And now we have Heroic Vader. So Kelleran Beq, 7 mana, 7/7. When played, search your top 7 cards for a unit, and you can play it. It costs 3 less. Okay, and I will look at him in the best case scenario. So you play him on 7. You find a free drop. You play it from 3. So a lot of stats. He has 7/7 instead of 5/7 ambush. Uh, so you can say he's worse because ambush is a really powerful ability, but at the same time 7/7 is a really big stat line. Uh, and the fact that not many things trade into him, like now we basically have Maul and the new Qui-Gon. But I think the fact that it's like home one, it's not forcing you to play a free drop. You can play something more, and in the prolonged games, it can be really, really something big. So you can probably play him and like a 5 drop. Can push him to be really, really good. To just have a more redundancy with U-Wing reinforcement. He also synergizes with U-Wing reinforcement. But for me, the biggest synergy he has is with the new Qui-Gon and the exploit 8 drop, because you can basically play him on turn 3. And then you have the value of the another thing you played. So you put 2 units on the board, and you can basically repeat the cycle every single turn, just getting more value.
So I'll just separate this into two things. One, the Qui-Gon, and one not Qui-Gon. So in the Qui-Gon world, let's say the Qui-Gon deck works, which I'm skeptical of, but let's say it works. Then obviously you put the guy in the deck. He's great. You know, he's what you want. That's fine. In the world where Qui-Gon, we're not talking about Qui-Gon. We're talking about something else. Then he's sort of harder to evaluate. A 5/7 ambush is almost certainly better than a 7/7 in my opinion, because affecting the board really matters for your 7 drop. A 7, if you play this guy and then he doesn't pull out something that affects the board, a lot of times you will just die. And like, yes, there are games where you're against a control deck and you don't need to stabilize the board immediately and stuff like that. That's all good and well. And I think he's fine for that. But for your 7 drops to work, they basically, I think, need to help against aggro in some way. Luke Skywalker, Cad Bane, Vader, Maul, all the ones that see play do something to affect the board. So can we make Kelleran affect the board? Well, Village Protectors seems like the obvious shout to me. You get to put a really tough unit to get through there. However, if you're playing Village Protectors, that means you're in an aspect with Luke, and Luke is better than this guy. I'm almost certain of it. So how many 7 drops do you really need? That's hard to say. So I just think he's kind of one of those where he does a lot of little things quite well. He's quite a good all-round unit, but he doesn't do anything amazingly. He's kind of worse than Vader at one thing. He's worse than Luke at another thing. So I do think he has a role to play, and like you said, Ewing redundancy and things like that. But how many 7-cost cards can you actually fit in a deck? And we keep getting more and more 7-cost cards that are all pretty good. And we've just got Qui-Gon, like you said. We can't put all of them in a deck. For a 7-cost card to make the cut, it needs to be really, really good nowadays. So I'm not sure about him. I think he will definitely crop up. There will certainly be a deck for him. I just don't think he's going to have the impact of like Luke unit or something like that, because he just doesn't do enough to stabilize the board, in my opinion. And that little additional benefit. And let's not forget as well, compared to Vader, Vader looks at the top 10, right? And there's a big difference. You're only looking at the top 7 means you've way fewer options, so 30% reduction there. But also what was I going to say then? The thing you mentioned about it being like home one, where you can sometimes play like a 5-drop or something. It's definitely not worth nothing, but it's somewhat minor, I think, that, because most of the time you're going to want to play this guy on curve. There's not that many games where you get to go with like 10, 11 resources, but it does happen, and you're right. In those situations it can be useful.
I can also add that he will probably also may see play in like Han 1, because Han 1 is putting him much earlier, and Han 1 can, if you manage to put him early, Han was looking for value, not really the answer for the board. So Ewing reinforcement, I think it's a really good comparison to in Han 1, he may be better than Ewing in a specific situation in Han 1 specifically, because you are putting a really big units on the board much quicker than before. But yeah, I agree that we are at the point that 7 drops are just, there's so many of them, and so many of them are really powerful that he may just be out of the scope because he just have a really good competition.
Also, just to carry on from that, I mean, Han 2, he's obviously clearly better in Han 2 than he is than Ewing Reinforcement, because you can actually play a turn earlier, right? So another way better in Han 2.
Oh yeah, in Han 2 he's actually really good, because then the reduction cost makes more sense, because playing him on 6 as a 7/5 is still a really good stat line. Yeah, so maybe like he does something a little bit unique. So yeah, I just hope to see those cards. I think I really like in Star Wars that we have a lot of cards that have a similar power level, and we are getting to the point that you can build your deck like slightly different, but it makes a lot of difference in play. So we have more choice, and I think it's really good that there is not like, oh, this card is just better than the other one, and you will never play this one because it's worse.
Yeah, well, we were reaching the point in terms of like rotation-wise where we're getting almost the maximum number of sets, so that's why we're benefiting from that. Sadly, in a couple of sets' time, we're going to go back down to 3, so we're going to lose a lot of that. But for now, we can enjoy it. Yeah.
Okay, and now let's talk about my GOAT. The leader that I'm really excited to build around. So Qui-Gon Jinn, not only one of my favorite characters, but also I think they really created a ability for him that is really unique. So on action, you can use the Force to return a non-leader unit and play a non-villainous unit that costs less for free. And on flip, he basically does the same, but attacking, and you don't need to use the Force. I was skeptical if we will get the Force easily, especially that when they spoiled him, I already thought exploit. That was my first thought. And we got an 8-drop exploit card, the Bactoid tank, the 5-something ambush with exploit 2. So if you manage to have 2 units on 4 resources, you could play it, you could kill something, you could bounce it back, and then play a 7th drop. And we have tons of 7 drops to choose from. He can play the new Qui-Gon, he can play the Han, the Enfys. So if you manage to pull it off, it can just snowball to win the game. He also can be played in yellow. It will be much harder to gain Force, but you get the access to really powerful when played abilities. But because we got the easy Force, I think this is a reader you will definitely need to build around and try to break. And yeah, it may not happen. He may just be obscure and his ability is not consistent. But I think this ability is so powerful. If you manage to do a consistent deck that uses them, he can just he may be banned if we do it.
Yeah, probably they've got the most potential of any of the cards we've seen so far to be banned one day. Like, I think that's probably true, or to be banned this set. That doesn't mean I'm going to say he's good. So, I think he kind of gives me Dooku vibes, where when Dooku's revealed, it was kind of a similar thing, where you can really abuse Dooku in a lot of ways, and not in quite the same way, but you can do kind of crazy things where you play big units on turn 1 and all this kind of stuff. And it never really came together. Dooku's not a particularly strong deck, you don't see him anywhere. So, obviously, Qui-Gon, it really is going to depend on the rest of the set and what we can build, and what the kind of collective hive mind of the community can put together. He obviously has potential, but he also, at the same time, if your opponent has just a few brain cells and plays around the exploit a little bit, all they need to do is get you down to 1 unit on the board at any time, to play around that, which is not that hard, especially when you've got a leader that does nothing. The leader doesn't actually impact the board in any way at all. So all he does is kind of almost weaken your board in a lot of situations. So his leader ability outside of exploit shenanigans is kind of weak. His deploy is horrendous. So I feel like it will be one of those where if your opponent knows what they're doing, you'll be able to catch people off guard. But if your opponent knows what they're doing, it's going to be so hard to actually make work. But and his Bactoid Spider Droid is going to be enough. It's kind of like one of the only. There's not many exploit cards. I don't know. So there's a lot of big ifs. Certainly a cool. What's the phrase? A Timmy who wants to do big powerful plays.
Yeah.
Certainly a card for those type of people. But honestly, I'm really hoping he's not good because if this guy's good, he's probably too good. So yeah, but I would bet now if someone were to ask me what would you say, I would say it's unlikely he will actually be a tier 1 deck, but we'll see.
I will also add that the Jedi Consular with him is also really good because it's the colors you
Yes.
want to play. You have the Force, and with them playing a 5-drop plus a 4-drop on the same turn, so you can like play a 5-drop ambush and then play Ahsoka. A lot of value for turn 2, and then you can basically do the same next turn. So I I will try to make him work. I will definitely build him in probably every single color combination that I think may work. Uh, I hope he will work, and I hope he will not be OP.
Yeah.
But
Well, I'll enjoy testing Sabine against him and
yeah.
beating you every game with it. So that's all I have to say. But yeah, no, I hope the same thing. I just think it's kind of all or nothing. I think
Yeah,
it's unlikely he's going to be a fair deck
yeah, but I sadly
and a good
think,
deck.
yeah, I sadly think if he will work, he will be a really short-lived deck.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and now we have something really uh, new, I think, because so Sifo-Dyas, 5-drop, 4/4, really terrible stat line. Force Jedi Republic, important traits, but maybe not like the most important for his ability. But his ability is what makes him interesting. So it's when defeated, look at the top 8 cards of your deck. You can play clones with combined cost of 4. Not play them, you can discard them, and then you can play them for free. So a little bit like Cobb Vanth, but much more powerful ability. You're not looking for a 2-drop, you're looking for a combination to 4 mana. So it can be a 4-drop, it can be a 4/1 drops, or I don't know, 8/0 cost clones. Uh, but when I was looking at him, it was basically like his best case scenario is you play him, he dies, uh, so you get a 4/4 stats, and then you put, for example, two drops. 2 drops are basically like a 2/3 or 3/2, so 5 stats. So you can play a 5 mana 14/14 stats, which is like it can be a value that cannot be really overlooked because it's an amount of stats that can push you into the possibility of just game breaking. At the same time, it may be quite hard to do it consistently because 5 mana 4/4 can just be like leave aside and your opponent may not kill it ever, and then you will never get the value.
Yeah, so a lot to unpack here. He's just very similar. He's just like a scaled up Cobb Vanth, really. And Cobb Vanth was one of those cards that I was one of those people who, because I say every card is terrible, it's very rare that I overestimate a card. But Cobb Vanth was one I overestimated. I thought the card was going to be good. It turned out to not
Yeah.
be good at all. Like nobody plays it because the initiative system of the game means that you have to lose initiative. You have to keep passing. If your opponent, if you've got Sifo-Dyas out and your opponent, you want to claim the initiative, let's say you just play it on 5 resources, you can't do that because your opponent can just trade into it and then you don't get to use the ability. So you get trapped with the initiative just like Cobb Vanth, and that's a really, really big downside because if this guy's ever played as a 5-cost 4/4, let's say either he misses clones, which you shouldn't do if you're building the deck correctly, or you do that thing I just mentioned with the initiative, then he's absolutely horrendous, obviously, game-breakingly bad. So, or game losingly bad, should I say? So, a lot of kind of things have to go right for him. You have to put a lot of bad cards in your deck. I think clones in general aren't amazing. I know, like, Hand 2 ECL players might play a lot of clones and stuff, but in most decks, clones aren't hugely good. So, there is a real cost to playing clones in your deck. Much like Knight as a trait, there's really not many good options. So yeah, I think at the moment he's a little bit tricky with him. One thing I will say for him is that the probably biggest enemy of Sifo-Dyas is Cunning as a card, because if you can bounce this back to hand, it's an absolute disaster, and Cunning doesn't see very much play at the moment. So So, and there's not really many other ways. People don't play Waylay that much, and there's not that many other ways to actually deal with him cleanly. Obviously, there's no glory, only results as well, which is the bad news for Sifo-Dyas. So, it depends on kind of what meta we're in, but and whether or not you can actually build a deck with clone cards. I'm skeptical that will. I'm skeptical of everything apparently, but I'm skeptical that will happen. And there really isn't like a K2SO power level like 4-drop you can pull from this particularly. Even the 2-drop clones are bad. They're not good cards
Oh,
to include in your deck.
you have
So
heavy.
Heavy's okay, but Heavy's nowhere near like
Yeah.
the same I think
Uh,
power level as K2SO. Heavy's like niche okay card. So I don't know.
okay, so now I will like do my hoping. I think the deck that will definitely can abuse him is Hand to Green, because you already play clones. As you said, Hand to ECL. Because you already play like 6 1-drops. There are few clones that you could play that wouldn't hurt you, like in deck building. Like for example, Heavy. Some people already was playing Heavy in the deck, and they will definitely need to add at least few clones in this set, uh, even if 1 or 2 of them are playable, because like they can't have a card without any synergy.
They
For like,
might. I think they can. I think there's a possibility.
oh,
But yeah, hopefully not.
And playing him for 4 mana, because you basically want him to die, to trade into thing and
Yeah.
die, and playing him for 1 cheaper is incredibly big, because for me 4/4 and 4/2 not that big of a difference. If you want to
Well, there is the 3/5 stat line, right? The 3/5 eats him kind of for free, which
yeah,
is
oh,
a bit awkward. But
you still leave the 3/5 on 1 HP. Of course, right
yeah,
now we don't have clones to like have a big impact. But what I wanted to say with initiative, because you said that you don't want to lose initiative, but there is also a point that if you have infinite actions to make, you can put your opponent into position that if they claim initiative, you can just finish the game with like a stupid combo. And the combo that came to mind is the Rex combo, the 6 mana get plus X for the amount of units you have. So if you play him on 5, he dies on 6, then you can play a clone, play a clone, play a clone, play a clone, deploy Rex, 6 mana plus 20. And of course,
sorry, which card is this? Sorry,
the
which card?
double green 6 mana. I completely forgot the name. It was from the new
Is
set.
is it a clone?
No, it's a event. I,
Oh, sorry, I got. Yeah, I'm with
yeah,
you now. Yeah, the
yeah,
event. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm with you.
So I don't think in the maybe in the Rex deck, in like a combo deck, because it will be then consistent way to just get a lot of different units. But
Unity of purpose.
yeah, unity of purpose. Yeah, but I think sometimes the the fact that he will, if you for example put 1-drop, 1-drop, 2-drop from him in your discard pile, the 3 actions can be a really big ones, because then you can prolong your deploy of a leader. You can like you can gain value from using a lot of actions. And with Cobb Vanth, it was really awkward, but Sifo gives you a little bit more of a build around. Uh, I I hope he will be used. I think he's on a power level that with a proper support he can be a staple. Uh, but on the other hand, I agree that he may just be too slow and too clunky, especially in the game that it goes faster and faster. 5 mana can just be too expensive.
Yeah. I mean, put it this way: as a Sabine player, this card obviously doesn't scare me at all, like not in the slightest. But it's obviously not necessarily for the Sabine matchup. But
Yeah.
you can have as many units as you want when your 4/4/5 drop dies. But I'm not bothered about that. So yeah, not good in the aggro matchup.
Yeah. Okay, so oh yeah, let's go with Qui-Gon Jinn. I think this is a card that most people are really excited, and this is one of the cards that I actually would be prefer to be on the other side, of the outside of having to say negative things about the card. Uh, but the card is, without saying anything, it is a powerful card. I think we can compare him to Maul because it has similar stat line. But different extensions. Maul's overwhelm ability is actually really important. This card works a little bit differently. You want him to die because then he goes 2 for 1. And every single card in the game that goes 2 for 1 is good. So like K2SO, Luke, every removal. And he can go 2 for 1, he can go 3 for 1. If you manage to play him early, he will basically kill every single leader. 7 HP is 7-8 power is enough to kill most of the relevant leaders in the game. I think he may replace some 7 drops in Han 1 decks because even though Han is really powerful, it will mostly depend on the meta if you want a 7 power or 7 power ambusher or 6 power ambusher. But for me, there are 2 decks that I think he will be incredibly powerful, and it's Han 2 yellow, because playing him on 6 mana, that will guarantee that he will die and always go 2 for 1, can stabilize the board really easily, which is really important. And Han 2 yellow, even though it's not a deck that is really prevalent in the meta at the moment, it's not a bad deck. On the power level, the deck is really good, but it wasn't consistent enough with the Force, and now I think in this set it may be. But in Qui-Gon, like playing Bactoid, ambushing, and then playing Qui-Gon, you win the game. As Al said before, if your opponent is good, he may not allow it, but still having a threat of it, and like we are used to 7 drops being powerful. I just think he's on par of the power of the other ones.
Yeah, it's kind of difficult because I mean, like you said, he's kind of directly comparable to Maul, also very similar to the Han unit as well. You know, you're absolutely spot on. I think if 7 power is more needed, then that's more important than is when defeated. It's almost like the power breakpoint is just the key part of the card. In a similar to, I mean, Han the Han units, the 6/6 ambush. His ability, while very good, is almost like it's secondary to the amount of damage you need to deal, so it really comes down to that. So I could easily see him replacing the Han unit in Han 1 if 7 power is an important breakpoint, which it could well be. It's difficult because the when defeats ability, I mean, it's kind of like it's a 2 for 1, but not quite as good as that because obviously they can put the unit back on the top of their deck. So if it's a key unit they need, they do get it back. So it's almost like a stronger waylay in a way. They lose the card from hand, but they will draw it next turn if they want to. So, you know, in a way, it's not quite as good as that. And not hitting space units is a big deal because, you know, there's a lot of times when you have the hand unit and it doesn't do enough because your opponent's attacking you through the space, and it's just not enough. And obviously, Qui-Gon does nothing to aid in that at all. So, whereas things like Luke, Luke unit, again, I think probably pretty universally agreed that Luke unit is stronger than Qui-Gon. Luke obviously can affect space. It can't like do crazy things against control, like put the Revenger back in the deck, or it can't do anything like that because it's just ground unit. So yeah, he does have limitations, and he's in kind of a slightly awkward aspect in a way as well because he's directly competing against the hand unit with the same kind of ability. So yeah, I think it's good. I think it's fine. I don't think it's like a game-breaking 7-drop, and for a 7-drop to a game-breaking, it basically doesn't happen because 7 is a heck of a cost. A lot of games don't even get to that, or they only just get to that resource, point. So can't tell you the number of games that, against an aggro deck where you don't have time to play Luke, or you only just get Luke down, and Luke stabilizes the board much better than Qui-Gon does. So yeah, I'm not convinced he'll do anything to affect the game. Really, he's probably just a slight upgrade in some situations over the hand unit.
Yeah, okay. Now let me go to the bad side. I will go double bad cop. I think also his when defeated is not as powerful as a lot of people think, because it basically has two ways. If you put a low drop, like a 1-drop, 2-drop on top of your opponent deck, it's really good because not only you kill the unit, but you break their top deck. But on the other hand, if you kill something and you put their Luke on top of their deck, they will just draw it and play it.
Well, sorry, just don't forget that the owner of the unit gets to pick. So if it's a 1-drop, they'll just put it on the bottom of the deck.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, so it's even worse. Yeah, because then if it's a 1-drop, they put it on the bottom. If it's a Luke, they put it on the top. So yeah, it gives you value, but it won't really generate the I dealt with the look, I don't need to think about it. It will be I dealt with the look for now, and then I will need to think about it turn later. So I think the something that may save him a lot is just his stats. 7-5 ambush is just something that we didn't have in this color. So a lot of people said that he is an auto include. He will be in every single yellow heroic deck, and for me it's not even close to that. I think he's a powerful card, but at the same time a lot of things need to go well for him. But on the other hand, if we will have a prevalent like Boba leaders, like 4/7 leaders that he will just kill and survive, he may just be a perfect answer. And lastly, a card that split our like internal Discord server about the power level is Anakin Skywalker, and 6 mana vigilance card, 5/7 Force Jedi Republic, and he has 2 when played ability. One is if you have if you have a heroic card in your discard, give -3/-3 to a unit, and then you have villainous -3 card in your discard, you give a unit -3/-3. 2 really important things. So you may look at this card as like a better look because it's cheaper. You can split the minus into 2 units, so you can kill 2 things. But it doesn't have restore compared to Luke, which is really important. It has a little bit worse stats, but I think stats and cost, on average, it's better than Luke. But now the biggest elephant in the room: is it really possible to have both heroic and villainous cards in your deck and not suffer the cost of it? And is he a good unit if you only have -3, like one of them? I still think my answer is yes. Even if you only have one, 6 mana, 5/7, -3/-3 is good enough to see play. It's not broken if you only have one. It will be broken if you will have 2. I think if you can reliably have villainous and heroic cards in your discard pile, it may be a best 6-drop in the game. It's not saying much because 6-drops are terrible in Star Wars. Like, on top of my head, the best 6-drop I can think of is Fire Spray, and it doesn't see play.
Oh, it's Wrecker by a mile. Come on.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, Sabine player. Yeah, it is.
It's clearly Wrecker.
Yeah, it is Wrecker. But for example, this unit can be better than Wrecker.
It dies to Wrecker, but
yeah. It kills Wrecker.
It does. Well, yeah, does it though? Yeah, that's the question.
Yeah, but
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say I know you will have a lot of things negative to say about him, so.
Well, I'll just say the reason why I'm quite down on this card is because when it was released, the sheer mania that took over people. I mean, people they think every card's busted, right? The general Star Wars Limited play public feel like every card's too good, but. And I do feel like a bit like Harry Potter, like I'm a Dementor coming in here and like sucking the fun out of the game. But just to bring it back down to earth, like I think this card has a lot of limitations. Now, clearly a strong card. It's obviously worthy of being a legendary. It's a good card, right? If we're comparing this card to Jedi, Luke Jedi Knight, then that's already a great start, right? Because that's one of the most powerful cards in the game. So it's clearly a good card. As you said, you've got to break it down. If it's a 6-cost 5/7, -3/-3, is that good? It's a decent card. I think it's fine. You probably play it in a lot of blue decks, and it's fair enough. But it's certainly not breaking the game by any means. It's a good 6-drop. If you do get the -3/-3 twice, either on one unit or separate into 2 units, that's obviously so powerful. And Chance of the Palpatine's the easiest way to do that. Obviously, you can play both heroism and villainy cards. At the moment, Palpatine's a pretty poor leader, so I don't know if this is going to be enough to make it good. No. But certainly, that's the best place to look at it because that's an incredible thing to easy way to trigger it. Now. Otherwise, outside of that, at the moment, I don't think there's any effective way to put heroism and villainy cards in your deck, when they don't belong. Like you mentioned, things like Force Choke and stuff that you can discount, but Force Choke for 3 is still a really poor card, I think. I don't think it's good. Force Choke's not even that good for 2. So, yeah, I don't love it. And So I just don't think there's a way to really reliably trigger this as it stands. And that's why I think it's only an okay card or a pretty decent card. The stabilization of Luke, coming down a turn earlier is obviously fantastic, but the Luke is the best of all the 7-drops in that sort of collection of 7-drops because of the Restore 3. That's a huge part of it, because not only do you get to kill something and put a unit on board, but your aggro opponent can't just ignore it. Healing 3 a turn means they're on a clock to win the game, a bit like a Reinforcement Walker. So whereas Anakin doesn't do any of that, at the end of the day, if you play him and what if your opponent doesn't have a 3 health unit? You play it, it minuses something, does basically heals you for 3 or whatever. That's all at best or whatever, and then they've just got a 5/7 they can kind of ignore. So yeah, I think it's going to be a strong card. It's going to see play, but I don't think it's like this crazy ridiculous 6-drop, unless of course we get a really easy way to trigger the ability, in which case it would be crazy.
I will say like 2 things that I see he will be stronger than normal. First, like I mentioned this leader a lot because it's like the leader I play. So hand 2, 5 mana. If you manage to have the those card 5 mana -6/-6 is like it's basically you play the best removal in the game plus a 5/5 body. With 4-stroke, you said it's not that great on 3, but it will kill most 3-drops. And yeah, you give a card to your opponent, which is a big deal, but you then can be put into the play that you don't really care how many cards your opponent have, because you will play better value cards till the rest of the game, and Anakin then supports this as a lot because he deploys on the same turn as your leader with hand 2, and -3/-3 is it's not that powerful, but if you combine it with the leader attack, it can clear most things. So I think in hand 2 blue, if the deck will ever become like meta, it will be an auto include, even without the villainous card, because right now with my hand 2 build, I play the hammerheads, the ships with the same stat line, the same cost, and 90% of the time it deals 3 damage. And the card is okay, because it deals the amount of damage that you have cards in hand, and on 5 mana you most likely will have 3 cards after you play it. And his ceiling is so much higher, and I think the thing I didn't really appreciate before is that you can split the minus with him. And of course, it's the best case scenario. It's in the deck that can, but killing 2 things or even reducing the power of 2 things, especially later in the game, can prevent your opponent from lethal, because if for example, if they have a 2-3 attack units, you're on low life, it's really hard with 1 card to deal with both. Even like, for example, Luke can't. And like Luke also have the threshold of dealing -6/-6 if something died. It's not hard to do with Luke, but sometimes you still only do -3/-3, and -3/-3 is still a really powerful ability. So yeah, for me, from the cards we've seen till now, I think Anakin is the most powerful card they spoiled. But saying this, also I'm not really sure if he will 100% see play. But like it's
That's not a good place to be then.
Okay. But,
it's the strongest card.
But okay, it's but I want to like exercise, because I think like Maz Kanata will see play 100%, but I don't think her power level is insane. I just think she's like a really stable card, and there is a lot of cards in the set that I think will be just a stable addition to many decks. But if we have a like correct combination of cards, Anakin, this Anakin can just be insane. Like the value, if you play him with -6/-6 on average on 6 or 5 mana, like this is basically a ECL Poe but better.
Yes, yeah. Well, I'll just say one final thing that kind of ties into that. I think when you said earlier, you mentioned that like there really aren't that many good 6-cost cards in the game. I think basically what you're kind of alluding to there, and what you kind of kind of touching on there, is that it's not so much that the 6-drop cards aren't very good. It's that basically the way they've balanced the game is that they've basically scaled up all the cards. So a 2-drop to a 3-drop, all the way up to like a 10-drop, whatever. They scale it up appropriately, but that makes it not good enough because a lot of games don't get to that cost, or the games are decided. So many games at the moment are decided in the early few turns. But other than control mirrors, a lot of games are decided. Not all of them, but a lot of games are decided in the early 5 turns of the game, especially with aggro decks, but not exclusively. And so Anakin at 6, he needs 6-drop cards need to do a lot for the cost. And -3/-3 at that stage in the game, it does start to get kind of a bit of a low impact. I mean, I know you said Luke is not bad with -3/-3, and he isn't bad, but it's not like
Yeah,
you
yeah.
never. I don't think you're ever that excited about it really with -3/-3. It often doesn't kill something, and I think that's a bit of an
Yeah.
issue. So obviously, there is two realities here. There's a split reality where we're in a world where Anakin can trigger both sides of the ability, and clearly no one's going to argue that's not the best 6-drop in the game. It's incredible. And then there's the other world where realistically he probably only can deal one -3/-3, and then that's a much fairer card.
Yeah. Yeah, I fully agree with it. And with Luke, I think people like comparing the card to Luke is also quite unfair to Anakin, because with Luke that restore 3 is actually, I think, the biggest part of the card. Uh, because it not only removes something but then stabilize your HP. Anakin will not do it. I think also with what you said with the ramping of cards, I think they do it till the 6-drop, because 7 drops then are much more powerful on
Mm.
average. Like even Vader, like he gives such a big value uh, that, and because of how the game like evolved, 7 drops are as easy to play as 6 drops most of the time, because of the leaders like Han. Like the leaders you play the 7 drops, it like basically doesn't matter if it's a 7 or 6 drop. That's why when I talked about him, the first leader came to mind was Han too, because playing him on 5 as a 5/5 is what I would really like to do. Uh, the one thing that also I think we didn't said before is it's a card that is similar to Luke but can be played in villainous decks, and
Yes.
this is actually something that villainous didn't have any access to before, uh, because like they had access to like Dooku that killed a 4 HP unit on 7, and we saw it played in some decks. So Anakin can also be like a good addition to like hard control decks, and maybe hard control can sneak up a heroic card. Like they were playing heroic cards before, like Tech, like Spark. So
Yeah, it's that's really only playable in the control
yeah,
mirror
yeah,
though, right? Like you don't have time to play that here, but
yeah,
maybe he makes it so you do have time. I don't know. Yeah,
yeah,
it's definitely something to look at. I agree.
yeah. So like for example, if you like on 5 you play a heroic card under curved, like any removal or any card like this, then on 6 you can clear a lot. Maybe this is the place that he will find. But I think because of how like he's decent statted, have decent ability even if you trigger 1, and he can be insane if you have 2. So this is actually the legendary cards I want them to make. I think
Yes.
Anakin and Qui-Gon, both of them deserve the legendary status. And for example, Malak before could be an uncommon.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Completely
So
agree.
yeah. So this is the all the cards we prepared today. If you, I'm really happy that Al you joined me. Uh, so really thank you for your expertise and for being the bad cop today. Maybe we'll switch it up next time. Uh,
I don't know if I could be the good cop to be honest with you. I'm so negative about these cards, but
I
no, it's
think
been an absolute pleasure.
yeah, I think it could be a really funny experience to seeing you saying good things about the cards. But yeah, if you like the video, of course give us a like, and but what I want more, give us the suggestions of what cards you would like us to talk about. It can be cards from the new set, or maybe a card that is underplayed from the previous set. Uh, and I hope to like make a few more of those before this set comes out. Yeah, thank you everybody, and good day.